If you are pregnant and you have ever wondered what happens to my milk supply if I'm separated from my baby after birth, this episode is for you. Maybe you are planning a hospital birth. Maybe there's a chance your baby could end up needing monitoring or NICU time. Maybe you're planning a home birth, but transfer is always a possibility. And quietly in the back of your mind, there's kind of a fear like, will breastfeeding still work if we end up being separated? The short answer is yes. Good news. Yes, we can still make breastfeeding work even if we get off to a rough start and mom and baby are separated. But it doesn't happen automatically. See, milk supply in these early days is kind of time sensitive. And today I just want to walk you through how you can protect your milk supply without panic.
Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jamie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea and let's dive in.
Today's episode is brought to you by Restorative Roots. Restorative Roots delivers organic, traditional style freezer meals straight to your door so you can nourish your body, rest, heal, and truly thrive during the 4th trimester. Whether you are pregnant and want your freezer stocked for those early weeks, or your baby is already here and you just need something more, visit restorativeroots.com. Before we get started, I do just want to take a quick minute. If you are a new mom, if you are planning on breastfeeding, you are pregnant, or your baby is here and you're just having so many questions about breastfeeding, I invite you to download my free 5 mistakes that sabotage breastfeeding guide. It is littlebearlactation.com/mistakes, mistakes, littlebearlactation.com/mistakes. To download your free guide of the most common mistakes that I see new moms make when they are learning how to breastfeed that are preventable. I also wanted to let you know, since I know there are a ton of doulas listening, I do have a new resource available for doulas as well. Breastfeeding Beyond the Birth Plan is an advanced lactation continuing education for doulas to help you improve your breastfeeding support skills so that you're not left feeling that kind of imposter syndrome, helping moms navigate early feeding challenges. You can learn more about that in the show notes below. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, we are talking about how you can protect your milk supply if you are separated from your baby after birth. If you are pregnant and you have ever wondered what happens to my milk supply if I'm separated from my baby after birth, this episode is for you. Maybe you are planning a hospital birth. Maybe there's a chance your baby could end up needing monitoring or NICU time. Maybe you're planning a home birth, but transfer is always a possibility. And quietly in the back of your mind, there's kind of a fear like, will breastfeeding still work if we end up being separated? The short answer is yes. Good news. Yes, we can still make breastfeeding work even if we get off to a rough start and mom and baby are separated. But it doesn't happen automatically. See, milk supply in these early days is kind of time sensitive. And today I just want to walk you through how you can protect your milk supply without panic, without rigid rules, and without feeling like everything is ruined if your birth and that immediate postpartum phase doesn't go exactly as planned. Let's start with something really important to understand. When your body is born, your placenta separates, and that triggers your body to start making milk. Early milk production is hormonally driven. However, it is not just hormonally driven. Okay, so just because your baby was born doesn't mean milk is just going to start flowing. Your body still needs to have those clear and consistent signals. Normally, these signals come from skin to skin contact, frequent feeding and effective milk removal. But when a baby is separated from their mother, whether it's temporarily or for longer stretches, those signals can be interrupted. And this is what blindsides a lot of moms. In the medical setting, the focus shifts to baby after the baby's born. Everybody's focused on the baby, making sure the baby's eating, yada, yada, yada. But there might not be anybody actively protecting your milk supply unless you know how to ask for support. This is why so many moms will tell me months later, like that they did not realize how much those first hours made a difference or how much they mattered. Those early hours do matter a lot, but if you are separated from your baby, it does not mean breastfeeding is doomed either. It just means that you might have to shift strategies a little bit. You might deal with some extra challenges. So one of the biggest myths is that you'll just figure this out if it happens. Like, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to pray for the best. And if it happens, we'll figure it out then. But the truth is, preparation is what protects milk supply, not luck. All right. So, yes, we want to hope and pray for the best, but we want to be prepared for the worst because you're not going to want to figure all this out when you are in that physically and emotionally exhausted state. After birth, you're tired and emotional, medicated, right? Separation amplifies all of that. So that's just not the time to be learning new things. So the first thing you need to understand is what your body needs. Okay. Milk supply depends on stimulation and removal, whether that is from baby or another method. That means we can use hand expression. We can use a pump. Okay. So you need to have an if-then plan. All right. And this is why I don't teach that you put breastfeeding on your birth plan. I teach moms to make a breastfeeding plan. Breastfeeding is more than a box to check on your birth plan. You need to make a breastfeeding plan, but it needs to be flexible. Okay. It's a little different than a birth plan. For example, you need to have something along the lines of if my baby can't latch, I stimulate my milk, I hand express. If we're separated, I pump. If no one is bringing this up, I ask. All right. And then you have to learn how to advocate early. You are not a difficult patient because you advocate. I remember when my second baby was born, I was hell bent on having a VBAC, and I did, but it was hard. It was a fight it was a battle. It was a battle. And at the end, I told my OB, I was like, I'm so sorry for being a difficult patient. And she looked me square in the eyes and said, don't you ever apologize for that again. You're not being difficult. You advocated for yourself and you advocated for your baby. And that's what I want to tell you. Advocating early is not about being difficult. If it rubs somebody the wrong way, that's a them problem. And you have no obligation to make them comfortable. You have every obligation to yourself and to your baby to advocate for breastfeeding. Milk supply is one of the things about breastfeeding where the earlier we take action, it makes the biggest difference. Okay. Like, yes, we always want to take action as early as possible. But if we let time get away from us, we have to work so much harder to cover ground and fix this. Okay. So I want to pause here and speak directly to the moms planning a home birth because I know that we're talking so much about being separated. We're concerned about that risk in the hospital, but when we're planning a home birth, we're not so much concerned about the likelihood of being separated, right? But we still need to prepare for other outcomes. I'm a home birth mom. I had 2 babies in the hospital, 2 babies at home, and 1 at a birth center. And it is so important to be prepared for the possibility of transfer. Okay. So I have worked with so many moms as a doula and as a lactation consultant who had a home birth and either transferred before baby was born or transferred to the hospital after baby was born. They were so worried about how that was going to impact breastfeeding, and it became such a stressor for them. So having a plan ahead of time is just going to make it all like this much easier, just a little bit easier, less to stress about, less to worry about, less panic. Okay. So if transfer happens, especially one that involves separation, you're going to go from, that familiar support to the bright lights and protocols and people who don't know you and don't know your goals. And you're not going in like slow and easy. You're going in under chaos most of the time, right? So that transition alone with all of the stress And then the separation and possibly delayed feeding, depending on what's going on, can impact your milk supply if you're not prepared. So we still need to talk about this, even if we have every intention of not being separated from our baby. So the first thing you need to do, if you're planning a home birth, especially, talk to your midwife about transfer scenarios. Okay. And then talk about how milk expression is handled, what kind of support you're going to have. If you transfer, but baby doesn't need to transfer, I've seen that before where the mom needed to transfer, but the baby didn't, and the baby stayed home with dad. So what do we do in that situation? So the number one thing we need to know is milk removal is a non-negotiable. Okay. Milk supply depends on milk removal. Yes, your hormones are going to play a big role, but we want to capitalize on that. Okay. We cannot rely on our hormones to do it alone. So if your baby cannot feed at the breast, we need to start removing milk within that first 1 to 2 hours if separation occurs. Okay. We don't need perfection, but we do need to try. This can be hand expression. This can be using a manual pump. This can be using a pump, a double electric pump. You can ask the hospital for a pump. All right. We can do both, but we cannot just wait to see how things go. That is delaying those early signals that your body needs. Some moms find that if they are separated and they know they're not going to be able to see their baby soon, somebody bringing pictures of their baby and a blanket or a hat that the baby was wearing, something that smells like their baby so that they can smell that and look at their baby while pumping, that actually triggers oxytocin and helps increase pump outputs. We want to make sure we're using a properly fitted flange. I cannot tell you how many moms are separated from their baby and they're like, I started pumping right away. I was pumping constantly, but still wasn't making any milk. Like, yes, well, 1, you're stressed. 2, you're probably not nourishing yourself. 3, we've got all those things from birth that can impact milk supply. But so many of these moms were not using a flange that fit properly, and therefore they could not extract that milk. So that is like something within your control. Just to recap, separation from your baby is not ideal, but it is not a deal breaker either. Okay. You need to advocate hard. If you can go be with your baby, go be with your baby. I might get flack for this, but don't take no for an answer. I know moms who have gotten up a couple hours after a C-section and walked to the NICU because nobody was taking them. Okay. This happens. I worked with so many moms who did that, and they went and they held their baby's hand and they looked at their baby and they smelled their baby while they pumped for the first time. So there is so much that you can do. You should not have to do that. You should make sure you have a team around you that's going to support you, somebody that can take you there if you need to, if you just had a C-section, if you can't walk. There are some moms who are separated, their baby is moved to a different hospital. So this is not easy for them to do. They can't just fight a little harder, right? They have to straight up travel, maybe even hours in some cases, to get to their baby's hospital, and they still have to deal with getting discharged themselves. So these kind of situations do happen and they're very difficult, but we need to advocate. I've had a doula client before whose baby was in the same hospital as her, separated. The reasons that she was separated were a little questionable, but she said, that's fine. I'm going to go to the NICU. I'm going to hold my baby. And the NICU told her she's not allowed to touch her baby because it upsets her baby. And she was like, what do I do? And I sent her all kinds of resources to share with them that shows how important this is. And she basically gave them these resources and was like, I will hold my baby now, because in this situation, it was safe. It was simply inconvenient. And she actually had the doctor the next day come in and say the only reason her baby was doing so much better the next morning is because she insisted on holding her baby, and that there was no order for her to not hold the baby. They confirmed that the nurses were just being difficult. So, every scenario is different. I don't want you to try to apply one size fits all, but just know that that does happen. This is not fear mongering. It's you being aware, knowing that you have the right to advocate, and that there are mothers all over the place fighting and advocating for breastfeeding and getting that early breastfeeding, that early skin to skin contact. Even if you are pumping while if your baby can't latch, but you can hold your baby, you can have somebody help you pump while your baby lays skin to skin and you smell their head. There are so many things that we can do to promote that milk flow, even when we're separated, even when our baby can't latch as soon as we want them to, even when things are not perfect. I hope this gave you a little bit of hope.
All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.